Here we go. Pulling up the notes. Corley Moore, Firehouse Vigilance. This is Weekly Scrap number 65. Special guest tonight is Chief Walt Lewis. He has been involved in the fire service since childhood and comes from a legacy of firefighting, including both his father and brothers. Volunteer starting in 1990, then to urban, then suburban, and for the last 25 years with the Orlando Fire Department. He is currently a district chief, and he has taught hands-on or presented at FDIC since 1999, helped create the Orlando Fire Conference to start in 2001, and somewhere in that general area had something to do with the Fools being founded. He is humble. He is a continual student of firefighting. So, Walt Lewis, it is my pleasure to welcome you to Weekly Scrap number 65.
Thank you, Corley. It's an honor to be here, especially with the guest list that you have.
A lot of fun, man. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight, so I'm looking forward to picking your brain.
Thank you. You need a small fork, just a small fork.
Okay. To everyone watching live, if you have questions for either of us, please do not hesitate to send them in the comments. And on your intro, did I miss anything? Anything you want to add?
No, just to address to send the check to. I forget. If you wouldn't update that one for me.
Fair enough.
But I'm kind of hoping we're kind of limited on the live guests tonight, figuring we're so close to Christmas. I picked this day strategically so that we'd have minimum interference, I guess, from some of my sidekicks.
There you go.
I'm ready for Hannah, though. I'm pretty sure she's out there somewhere.
She is always lurking and ready to throw the curveball. So we will see. 100%. And what was I going to say? Oh, you mentioned it. This is the Christmas episode. So I know you can't see it, but there are Christmas wreaths around us on the Weekly Scrap for those who are watching us live. So,
awesome.
Perfect. I'm ready to kick it off if you are.
All right, yeah, let's do it.
Right off the get-go, you intrigued me when we talked back and forth, email and text messages and whatnot, getting ready for this. And I always ask people what they want to talk about and things like that. And you said, I want to talk about tenacity, saving lives. And so I'm going to jump right into that. And before I do, the reason I'm doing this is because there's a lot of truckies that watch the show. So I looked up what tenacity meant on Wikipedia so they would understand that it means, I know I'm joking, but in a nutshell, it's the fact of continuing to exist, determination, persistence, or grip. So that is what tenacity kind of means according to Wikipedia. So tenacity, go for it, Chief Walt Lewis.
It's just my take on a few things. So this may address or may mean something to somebody, but my position on the whole thing, we talk a little bit in Mike Heaney's podcast. He's talking about guys being aggressive. I'm an aggressive firefighter. It should be synonymous, right? And I think even you said, have you heard of it, or an aggressive Marine? They're like one and the same, right? But with that, you're right. I mean, we should be aggressive because we should be good at our job because there's nobody else doing our job. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But where the tenacity comes from is you see somebody posting aggressive. I think aggressive is the act of putting the effort forward, but tenacity is what wants you to be aggressive. Tenacity is going to the classes and learning. It's doing the crawl, walk, run, learning how to do search. Like Mike Heaney's, like Scott Thompson, learning leadership and working for agencies that embolden that. I would love to go there because not every fire department does. But tenacity it's a personal drive. It's a mission that you want to enable for yourself, for your fire company, for your fire station. I like the term firehouse better, so I don't know why I said that. The firehouse, your shift, your crew, your district, whatever it is that you work in and how many other people you can influence, tenacity should be a tenet of the fire service, not just aggressiveness. Aggressiveness is the behavior, but it shouldn't always be applied. Tenacity also gets you behind the books and reading and studying. Tenacity gets you to go into classes or putting on conferences so you can host in classes. I mean, your opportunity to listen to guys, it's awesome. I'm blessed to be number 65 on the list of people that you've had involved in this, but following the likes of Bobby Halton and Scott Thompson and Rick Lasky and so many others that have been on the show, the beauty for you, my man, is you're a funnel for all these people to come through and pass this stuff on. And then the readers and listeners listeners that get to hear this, get to share that message over and over again, get inspired. And there's so many podcasts and so many elements out there that it's that tenacity that helps put this all together. So the big message is don't give it up. When you've run into those down times and you're frustrated and you your frustration saturation level is maxed out. That's what Tenacity continues to do, is to have you be able to look in the mirror and say, did I do my right job today? And there's those days we have to disengage and have a day for ourselves or some time for ourselves.
Sure.
And COVID's done that for a little bit, of giving us time back to our families and not being on the road traveling or teaching or being so engaged with the department. But there's other days that we've had to be at our department more because others are sick.
Right.
So it's a trade-off in some aspects, but Tenacity has kept us through. It will keep us going through. The fire conferences that got postponed, they will come back because of Tenacity. Our ability to do our job better will come back because of Tenacity. Our training in quarters will continue because we're filling those gaps, because we're tenacious. So I encourage everybody to be tenacious. Be aggressive when the time's to be aggressive, but always be tenacious.
Always.
Tenacity is going to save lives.
I love that, man. And it goes right in line with probably the number one question that every guest has received at some point or another, whether it be teaching a class or actually on the scrap, is, listen, I'm in the department and everybody's against me and I want to do this, or this. And it's like that tenacity is what it takes to stick through that culture. So I love how that cuts right through to the answer to that question.
Well, and you mentioned a little bit about being a part of the Fools, and that's what helped bring the Fools forward. I mean, there was 10% of us in one of my given agencies before that. Only about 10% of us that really took the job serious. Other guys were truck drivers or mechanics or fishermen or other stuff, and they came to the fire department for benefits, for a day away from their family, to have fun. And there were plenty of calls we walked away from like, well, we tried, and they were satisfied with that answer. And there's a good bunch of us that weren't. And in formulating a group and creating almost like a peer network and eventually an organization that became what's the Fools.
That's awesome.
We've encouraged it's good to be good. It's okay to be good. You know what? It's actually not good to not be good.
To not be good.
To not be good. And I had the blessing early on, it was 98, 99, around then, close to 2000. Chad Rodriguez and Chad Cox and Scott Kleinschmidt and some of the guys in Wichita invited me out to come speak. Who am I? I'm just one guy on a list of 6 that put a name on something. And I had a portion compared to the lion's share of what the other guys had involved in the Fools, but I'll be happy to spread the message and share my love. So I got the opportunity to come out to Wichita. They hosted me and got to have some really good barbecue and food and do a little lecture in a garage. It was really cool. And it was a converted restaurant, so it wasn't just a garage. But it was a really cool opportunity. And after the episode, they introduced me to the loafs, the counter to the Fools. And I had to laugh. I'm like, who are the loafs?
Really?
A league of average firefighters. I'll just die laughing. I'm like, seriously, there's people that are like, oh yeah, they got a logo, they got everything. Like, if they could put their powers to use for good, you imagine how much better they would be doing. But their counter was the Fools.
And that was a real deal. That wasn't just tongue in cheek. That was a real thing.
They drew up a little.
Sure.
They didn't make T-shirts or anything else. They didn't go so far.
Right.
Wow. But it's awesome to see Mid-America Fools. You guys have an awesome logo. Mike Tucci sent me a shirt years ago. It still fits. Maybe a little tighter than it used to, but it's my closet shrinks clothes. I don't know if you have one of those.
I do. It's behind me. It's behind the black flag. So 100%. All right, here we go. We got stuff coming at you. Hannah Elliott has already chimed in and said, give me something to ask questions about. So there's the challenge coming right out the gate.
All right. Well, she's asked a lot of tough questions of a lot of good people. So if I'm able to throw something out that she hasn't covered yet, I'll know I'm doing pretty good.
She will definitely bring her pickaxe and come at you. So we'll see.
Right.
Fire by trade, my man Brian Brush. Yes.
Yeah.
He says absolutely top shelf guy there. God bless you, Walt. Merry Christmas, brother.
Merry Christmas to you and the family, my man.
And Whit Dotson says the man with an exclamation point.
It's good peeps, man. So thanks, guys. Thanks for sharing it, being a part of this tonight.
Jose Zamora said, haha. So I'm not sure what the haha was for, but we're off. Now we are off and running. So we're into Tenacity, and just springboarding off of that, Firehouse Vigilance and the Weekly Scrap, the byline is the never-ending fight against complacency. And so I've heard you talk about complacency before, and we've already kind of even just started touching on it, the subject. But go ahead and talk about complacency and your take on its place in the fire service.
Well, it doesn't have a place in the fire service. We need rest periods, and I'll accept that. But complacency enables failure, and people are relying on us to do our job and do it well. And those people are at the other end of the phone. Now, a lot of times they're calling because they don't know who else to call. They don't know to call the cops. They don't know to call animal control to get the cat out of the tree. They call us because we solve problems. Now, some of those problems are a plane into a building where we have a small aircraft crash, or at 9/11, God bless, where we had a tremendous tragedy, right? But it's everything from top to bottom. So when it's COVID and people are sick and scared, they're calling us and we have the answers. And it's tough to remember that sometimes. Now, I'm blessed. I'm a chief officer. I'm a battalion chief. We call them district chiefs.
Okay.
So my job's not as exciting as it used to be. I like the job I got. I loved the job I had before as a company officer working with the troops.
Uh-oh.
Make it a point to prevent complacency in my district by working with the troops and training with them. And I try to temper that with the company officers, and I give them carte blanche to tell me, hey, Chief, could you back off a little?
Right.
I'd like a day to take it easy with my own guys. But I get this inane sense built up in me that I got to do something. I got to do a little training. I got to pass a nugget. I got to reinforce a lesson, or I want to learn what you're doing. I want you to show me what you're capable of. I want to see how long it's going to take, because as a guy as a commander sitting in the vehicle, none of you guys move fast enough. We're in there like, would you please hurry up?
Right.
But in the real sense, your guys are booking it. You're moving as fast as you're supposed to move, right? Now, you can run on the fire ground when it's time to run, but we want to be cautious on that. That's where you miss the holes in the ground, the power line down, how many counts on windows, the size of the dog in the backyard, all the problems that can cause us issues. So the complacency, if we allow that to fester, will dominate. And there are plenty of places, I've worked with them, I've worked under them, and I try not to work over top of them, that enables complacency. Even as a fill-in, when I was a district chief roving, I would go to all the firehouses. I made it a point when I was on another shift as the roving district chief. I went to each of the stations that were under my command that given day. And I talked to the company else. I was like, listen, I know you got a regular boss and you got a certain way of doing things. And this shift is the way it is. And the fire department SOPs is exactly what we operate under. But this is my thing. I want you to understand my things, because today you're my responsibility. Now, I'm not going to tell you, and I'm not going to run your firehouse for you. If you want me to, I will, but I don't need to. Right. You're doing a good job. Keep it up and allow me to help you do the things you need to do. But if I need to step in because you're being complacent, your crews aren't training, they aren't doing a good job. If I show up to a scene and your guys aren't wearing gear on a gas leak, you guys aren't doing what you're supposed to when you're supposed to be working your incidents. If you're not wearing your masks and your protective gear on your COVID calls these days, then I'm going to start running the show for you. And I won't enjoy it, and neither will you. But it's got to get done. So that's where the complacency comes in. And it's easy to do. It's human nature. Sometimes we want to take a back seat, and relax.
Absolutely.
There are those times. And I'll, as an early company officer, man, I was all excited. I'm going to train every day with my guys. I'm going to do all these things that I said I'm going to do.
Right.
And I started doing it. And I did district chief come to my firehouse and come get me out of the office as I was planning an exercise for the day. I'm like, hey, well, come with me. What do you got? And we went to the TV room, and he made me sit down and watch TV for an hour, just to give the guys a break.
Just to give them a break.
So at the end of it, he's like, okay, sometimes they need to take a rest.
Right.
Pump your brakes, cool down a little bit. But we went out later in the afternoon. We still training.
No, absolutely. And it's a hard lesson to learn. It's a very hard lesson to learn when you're wanting to go get it and you're in charge and stuff. And so,
yes,
it is. I love downtime, but if there's this fine line between everything is downtime and earned downtime, and that's the key. Is when you earn it, man, it's the greatest thing on earth.
Amen. We didn't get hired because the beds are comfortable and the food is good. We got hired to serve the community.
That's it.
And sometimes we lose perspective. Sometimes we forget about that. Now, I've spoken about this before, but to me, going to calls is the most important thing.
Yes.
A very close second is training for those calls, being prepared. Yes. Now, if you know which calls you're going to, you could just train and be ready for those, and you're good to go.
Right.
What's your next call?
Right. Exactly. Hey, just give me the crystal ball, and I will train on it right now.
I'll be ready to go. Right. I'll have my cape on, mask, fly right into the scene. But given that, complacency is always there. There's always a piece of equipment. Now, I'll let you in a little secret. Being on the other side of the curtain, if you don't find time for you to do something, they will find time for you to do something. They being the inspectors. Right. Hey, go help us with inspectors. A chief that wants you to wash his truck. Sure. An administrator that wants you to help move boxes and take apart furniture. And none of that is relative to what we're supposed to be doing. So if we do stuff that we're supposed to be doing, we're going to be engaged. And one of the company officers I worked with had a fantastic idea. Just something so simple. You sit every dinner in the kitchen, right? Now we got pictures all throughout the kitchen of fires, and we were doing pretty good for a while. We need to get back into it, of picking a fire and talking about it. And some of those stories just don't get carried. One of the guys, we were talking high-rise stuff. He's like, hey, Chief, how about on one of the columns or two of the columns, we put a little something on there about each building. We just put the address. We can maybe even put the name so that it comes on and off, because those changed every now and then. But we put details about the building that are not going to change. I'm like, that is genius, dude.
Yeah, no.
That's awesome. Yes. We're going to work on that after the new year. We're going to get on there and put those on there. And every time you come back to the kitchen and you sit down and eat dinner, there's a little bit of information about some of the high-risk businesses. We got the two biggest problems in downtown Orlando: nightclubs and high-rises. Building fires, commercial buildings for sure, garden apartments, houses. Our two biggest risks are high-rise and nightclubs. And I don't want to have a bad day with either one.
Either one, yeah. No, there's no doubt.
So I don't want the complacency to set into my office and to me. So I do my best to find something each day to do a little something. I do thank my personnel I get to work with. I mean, they don't work for me. They work for the Orlando Fire Department. And truly, I should work for them more than they work for me.
Right.
But they serve the citizens, and my job is to support them in doing their job.
Oh, absolutely. I love hearing that.
So the cool thing about my job is I get to drive fast, watch people work, and sometimes participate.
Right on.
But for the most part, it's administrative. So it's supporting them, making sure they got all the right gear. When they're missing something, they shouldn't go more than a shift with, hey, Chief, I can't find my gloves got taken, and I don't supply. Let me get all supply. The guy there is super nice. I'll get a hold of them. We'll make it happen, So there should be no reason they are scared to come to my office and get the support they need.
Love it. So on the same vein and continuing on, training is we're already touching everything. So it's just like as we move through this, we're touching it all.
I'm like an abstract puzzle, dude. I'm all over the place.
We're painting broad strokes, but we'll keep hitting it. And it's I have a belief in the 3 R's. So my 3 R's are realistic, rigorous, and relevant. Now, I think if you keep training to those 3 things, then you will achieve buy-in at the minimum from the guys that are doing it, or at least minimize the checkout factor. So, but I just want to talk to you about training, and are we setting ourselves up for success, and go with that. What I know you're huge on training, so I just want to kind of pick your brain and go deep.
Absolutely. I'm going to echo sentiments that have already been carried. I've heard in your podcast and some of the others out there. That absolutely. If we don't train to as realistic as possible, we're failing because we're setting unrealistic expectations. Mayday Training. Good buddy of mine, Jay Blake. He's a battalion chief up in Montgomery County, Maryland, and passed on the simple concept of when you do RIT training. You do RIT training, right?
Sure.
So when you do the maneuver to rescue the firefighter out of the building, how many guys do you engage in that RIT training?
I mean, as many as possible. Sometimes it's the crew that's in there that rescues them. Sometimes it's the actual RIT crew, etc. But right. Yeah.
But sometimes it's only a handful, right?
Yes,
it's 4,
one or
maybe
2
8.
crews, right? 1 or 2.
It's the station's worth.
Right.
So, there's so many times. So, hey, buddy. So that's my son sneaking back through.
Right on.
So, you want to say hi real quick?
Spot in.
It's my son, John.
So. All right.
All right.
Nice to meet you, John. Got your charger.
So, yeah. So let me stay on track with this.
You're good. We're RIT training. Go.
So RIT training. So when you do the RIT training, you've got only a small group of guys. We just recently did a high-rise training drill at the Fire Academy in a 4-story drill tower. And our training division did the best they could with making that 4-story drill tower as much of a scenario as possible. The drawback being is I didn't have even my full alarm assignment for a high-rise. And in calling for a second alarm, they're not showing up.
Right.
It's time compressed.
Time to play pretend.
Stairwells. Yeah, lots of pretend. And, people having to tell you, no, you can't do this.
Right.
I hate that. Reverse engineer this stuff. Reverse engineer it. Some of the best classes I've taken is when the hands-on instructor reverse engineered what are we trying to teach the students and how do we get them to there so they make the decisions along the way. So, I'll give props to Eckerd Fire Training. They did a thing up in Jersey. They forced the door, and going in to reinforce the guys to go in and pull the ceiling, they had sheetrock up there. Guys pull the ceiling, and they had Excelsior and straw up in a cage above what the hallway they built out was, so that there could be fire up there to give the guys the concept: do they go in? Do they stay out? What do they do? Call for a hose line. decision-making.
Decision-making right there, right then and there, yes.
Because you can teach me how to start an IV. You can teach anybody. You can teach me how to pull a hose line. You can teach anybody. Teach me the why, and now I have to add some concept to it. Now, as a chief officer, I expect the firefighter to do what we ask. But if it goes outside of my scope, I don't see what he sees. I need him to understand, him or her to understand why they need to open up the hose line on the heavy black smoke that's pushing out, because it's going to protect everybody else. And hey, chief, it's getting nasty in here. My company officer hasn't joined me yet because he's still finishing the 360. Now, we don't run an outside command, to give that caveat. They're coming in to join up and continuing the firefight. But whatever it is, if we don't teach our people to understand the whole why, and we only give them a little bit, and the downside is any class you've taken, any class I've taken, there's this much content. And as the days go on, you remember this much.
Oh, yeah.
And this much. And if you remember the core, you're doing pretty good. And you tend to remember the beginning and the last, right? So that's why teaching classes or being taught how to teach classes, you push, hey, this is what I'm going to teach you. I'm teaching you, and this is what I taught you. So you have the summary, if nothing else. Right. People come in and out. They miss little parts. They're not taking, they got to take the phone call from the spouse or whatever. They always get that distraction. Sometimes they miss those things. And I see it with roof guys doing roof classes. They get up there, cut the roof. Great. When you cut the roof in the turf cut, you end up with white powder coming out. What are you going to do? Then I'm going to cut over here. Whoa, really? Is that what you're going to do? So understand what kind of roofs you're going to be on. If your agency allows you to go cut on lightweight concrete roofs, have at it. Great. Then you know the technique. But understand it's going to take you a long time. You got to dig all that stuff out of there. You're probably standing on Q deck that's tack welded to the metal bar joist that's suffering from the contents of the fire. So if you're a great crew that's cutting fast with awesome equipment and getting the depth you need and raking it out really fast, have at it, brother. But if you're not, you're probably standing over someplace that you don't want to be when ultimately you're done, because the building's either going to start failing, the blow truss, the bar joist is going to start to warp. You're going to start having issues, and you're standing on the top of an insulator that's not going to give you the heat signs that a wood deck's going to tell you. Wow. And this isn't the gospel of Walt Lewis. This is studying from guys that cut roofs on a routine basis.
Yeah.
The last time I cut the roof was when I needed an attic hole in my house.
All right.
It was getting up there to fix the funnel vent. But so if we don't reverse engineer our training drills, go all the way to the beginning. So adding what Jay Blake put into that RIT drill. So he talked about, all right, make sure you use enough people, but if nothing else, break it down to that basic skill, so that when you have just that basic company, 4 people, 8 people, however many you can throw at this thing, add every other element you can. So we tend to rescue that person. We turn the air pack into a harness. We drag them out. We do Mayday traffic. We get them out. We tend to not travel and then have as many encumbrances getting them in and out as we have to. But then we get them outside. What's the next step? What's the next thing?
Usually we drop them on the ground and say, hey, we won. High five.
Right.
Yeah,
win.
We did it.
Score.
We did it.
Make it a W.
Yeah.
Do you get them out of gear?
Right. That's it. Yeah, you're spot on.
All right. So they fell off the second floor catwalk and landed, and it's not so much the derobing, pop the air pack, slide it out of the way. Meanwhile, you got the guy C-spined if you want to put him in the CPR maneuver, and then end up taking him out of the coat, sliding him out, and legs first, and then take him out of the bunker pants. Now, a friend of mine, Basil Ibrahim, and his crew demonstrate that on social media. And I love social media for some aspects. It really shares some great information. But I hate that you can get on there and say, hey, I love dogs. And people get on there and go, you're an asshole because you love
dogs.
Cats. Right. I didn't say I hate cats. I said I love dogs.
Right.
But, from just that simple solution, I know I'm abstract. I'm going all over the place with this. Bear with me.
Hey, trust me. This is scrap. You can go wherever you want.
All right. Well, I love it's a scrap. That's why I keep feeling like I'm fighting. That's what I'm talking about. Is that with his procedure showing out, and it's been shown several times, and there's other avenues where they show disrobing that firefighter. Now add the element of the firefighter having broken limbs or serious injuries, and you can't disrobe them in that maneuver. What's the other? It's cutting them out of bunker gear. And that's what Jay passed on, was like, have you ever tried cutting bunker gear?
Wow, no. Yeah, I've never even thought about it.
Got with a vendor nearby. They supplied us some great sets. Some of it was the really large and the really small, but now that it's got to go out of service every 10 years, you can find those pretty easy. And you just get 1 or 2 sets. I started bringing it around to the firehouses. Hey, guys, you ever cut bunker gear to get a guy out? No. It's easy. We'll do this. We'll do that. All right, give it a try. Let's see how it works. And then the great ideas turn into be about bad ideas.
Right.
And then, the other things, these simple things, a little seatbelt cutter, seatbelt cutter works good for cutting the material and then exposing what's your next step, where if you got a harness inside or however it's all built. But just one of those little things, because of reverse engineering the drill, you realize a whole gap in what you're not going to be able to get. So let's go to the bad situation. The guy falls off the second floor catwalk, falls off the roof, lands into an area, has to get Maydayed, rescued. RIT team gets in, brings them out. More people have to be involved because, well, we don't get to train with that. But add that element, more people involved, get that guy outside, and then we get into the vapor lock of how do we get him out of gear. We start trying to rip him out. And it could be a good plan. You can have a good plan. That guy's a good plan. But if you all have the same good plan, none of them are going to work well.
Right. They're all working against each other.
So having our ability to set a standard, want to meet that standard, and provide, because ultimately we should be doing it for ourselves. Because every citizen we can save and rescue in a house, every ladder we can throw to do a VES should be done for our own benefit and the capability of having to rescue a fellow firefighter.
Wow, yes, I love it. All right, catching you up. Carl Koffler said, hello, gents, from Wyckoff. I don't know where he didn't specify where Wyckoff is, so if it's Florida,
one of the best little towns in Metro New Jersey.
Oh, okay, so, there you go.
Yeah,
Merry Christmas to all. Be safe. Love your message, Walt. And then Scott Thompson said, reverse engineering. Start with the end in mind and why. And he left off the third one, which is, if not this, then what?
Then what? Exactly.
What? That's it.
Contingencies.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. I love Scott. He's great, man.
One of my favorites.
You talked about the rig.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm walking on you. Go.
No, you're good. You talked about the rigorous, the relevant, and the realistic, and there's always the crawl, walk, run, and in one of them you even add sprint, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. And there's the basics. You got to build the course basics of all those things, getting there. But if you don't understand the why, you can't make decisions when those contingencies need to be applied. And I like that we have a minimum standards for firefighting, that we have a minimum number of hours. The drawback is we still don't cover enough. And I'm kind of going out on a limb here. It really deserves more attention. And for the volunteer fire service, man, what a drain!
Yeah,
what a rough challenge that's got to be to have a home life, a work life, and then still give the volunteers. So a guy like Carl and Wyckoff, they're a volunteer fire department. They're great. A lot of great people up there. And Mike Champo hails from Wyckoff. So
okay.
His brother John and some other great people up there. So having people that have to devote their time to get more educated, but there are so many aspects to our fire service. So one concept that's out there that I think we could kind of better subscribe to is we almost maybe need to thin ourselves back down to just firefighting. And, reduce, get down to realistic expectations, what we can and do for our community. And I hate to say that as a chief officer, you want to get as much funding and support and elements and value our people. We got to show that our people are always engaged and always ready.
This is our value. Check it out. We do all this. Right.
What is too much? Mm-hmm. What is too much? And if your community can support that and you can do a lot of good stuff, then awesome. But if you can core down and be focused on a specific, I got the opportunity to train in Thibodaux, Louisiana, not too long ago, and some really great volunteer folks there. And they're fairly busy, and they got a big community. I would expect other areas of the country to be a paid department there, but they give so much of their time. And because their community supports them so well, they take it very serious and they give it back to the community. And I'm sure there's hundreds, if not thousands, of same agencies elsewhere in the United States. And thank you from a fire service member. Thank you for doing it that way, because it's the tenacity, back to that message, that's going to serve our community the best. And a little secret, we're all part of the community. You live in the community. Where do you live? Do you live in Moore? You live in Moore?
I do.
Okay. So you're serving your own people, right?
Absolutely.
You're serving your own family. I purposely live in the city of Orlando because when I'm at work and I can't protect my family, I am fully confident that Engine 14, whoever's assigned there any given day, will take care of my family like they should. So, and it's not a slight against any other agency near me, but I purposely live here because I have a little bit of influence on who those people can be, how well they train, all the inferences. And someday I'll retire, but I'm going to have confidence that before I left, I did a little bit to try and make it a little better. And hopefully it stays that way, or hopefully my message is worth it. But, back to the same thing with training is make it worth their time, whether it's volunteers, paid, you got a 3-hour segment. I hate the aspect that we train to a timeline.
Oh, God. I was going to bring that up, actually, because we just went through an 8-hour tech refresher. But I don't want to sidetrack. But yes.
No. Dude, it should be competency based.
Absolutely.
Okay, if after 8 hours I still suck at this, I need 9.
Yes.
Or 10.
Yes.
But, how many times do we do it? We're bad for it. We're ISO and accredited driven. We've got some evils or demons in that.
Sure.
Crown jewels that we have. And I'm proud that we've achieved those. But they sometimes force our hand in having to do stuff on a timeline and not competency based. So a company could come out and really do a poor job. Or in the same, the high rise evolution I spoke of earlier, only one company was the first in engine company. Everybody didn't get the chance to be the first in engine company.
No reps. The rotation on the reps. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that if I got put in the charge and the opportunity to make those big changes, there'd be a crowd of people that came to my office, picked me up and threw me over the fence.
Sure.
For making those kind of changes. Like, what are you doing, man? We used to do it only once, but now we got to do it 3 times. Right. And God bless our trucks, we don't have an even match, so they got to come out even more.
Right.
But the guys that like training, when we got to do, hey, we need some fill-in units to come in because we're down to those exceptions. We got to fill in the last couple of companies, make sure they go, but we need a couple to backfill for the other units that have already gone. We need to meet the numbers. We got plenty of officers that go, yeah, I'll go again. Yeah, I got a new guy. I got this. I want to try this out. I love those guys. Yes. I love them. And the guys and gals. And so please don't. We got some great personnel in our agency. So I love when those people step forward and want to engage because they just, one, they made it easier for me to schedule, and 2, they just strengthened their capability.
Absolutely. Love it. Jimmy Meyer has chimed in and said, the Treasure Coast Fools love Walt Lewis.
Uncle Jimmy. Thanks, buddy.
There you go. I wanted to touch so many things I want to touch on. One was like the hour requirement on training and things like that. But I'm going to move right to methods of triage. You've been through some incidents that have taxed triage abilities and things like that. Not in the theoretical, but in the realistic. How are we doing with our training in that regard? In a time compressed, limited information, limited resource environment, when it comes to like the hey, we developed this triage ability behind this desk here, so go out there and use it when the real shit hits the fan.
It's lacking. We do need a base plan to work with, whatever triage it is. We use Star Triage. It's a good core to work with, but again, realistic expectations. Dallas, Las Vegas, Aurora, Colorado, Orlando, Florida. They're all in a very unique fraternity of cities that have had mass shootings. Our friends to the south that had it, and sadly at the school.
Sadly, yeah.
So with those scenes, if you study those and just look at how those laid out, there's no one way in, one way out. And every training drill I've gone to for RIT, or excuse me, not RIT, we're off RIT, onto triage is. We've always come in from one direction. Hey, anybody can hear the sound of our voice, come here. I'll give you a secret. Yeah. I'll let you know a little secret. That siren that was blaring on the way there, that's the voice. That's the you. Hey, anybody come to the sound mic, because they're going to find you, and they're going to find your firehouse. For Orlando, they found Davis Odell and his crew, Engine 5, 2 doors up from where the Pulse is located on Orange Avenue, and they knew where that firehouse was because as they were enjoying their nights, the crew would be going out on calls. So it was hard not to notice where the fire engine was. It's 2 doors up.
Right.
So when they were getting shot at and they needed a safe place of refuge, they had to run to the fire. Some people ran to the fire. Some people ran the opposite direction. Some people continued on up the street to the hospital. So to go with the concept that everybody's going to be in one isolated location, it derives off of an incident that's isolated to one location. A plane crash where Sioux City, Iowa. Plane tumbles, cartwheels into the cornfields, and then crews are rolling in, and they're coming across the tarmac, and it looks like a Children of the Corn scenario where everybody's walking out, and it's like, oh my God, and they're all bloody, and it's horrific, and it's a line of people. Where do you start? You go to the far left, because there's still going to be a far left somewhere, so there's going to be some other people left over. So, and it's 1 or 2 people sufficient? I doubt it. Yeah. It wasn't for Pulse. It wasn't for Vegas. It wasn't for – when you got mass numbers injured, look at the trends in the Middle East and see what Israel does. See what other agencies do that have those horrific incidents on a frequent basis, and how do they manage it?
Right.
You know, the white helmets in Syria, God bless them for doing the work they're doing, but do it in a realistic sense of having a widespread event, and you're going to have to do your best. You're going to have to figure out what the borders are of that event and ultimately encapsulate every ground square inch within there.
Move in from
because
there.
it's not, it's not just bodies, it's body parts in some cases, right? So that's going to be part of the scene, and that's the long term. But this is also part of the training that we go into and teach our people. We just teach them, go out, and if they seem serious, if they're 32 can do, then they get a green. If they're not, then they get a red or a yellow. Okay, how about we go over the serious injuries that these people are seriously going to have, but realize that it's a yellow. It's a partial amputation, but the blood is stopped, and the victim's still breathing fine, and they're trying to save their wife that's on the ground, and the wife is the critical one, and it doesn't look like it's outward signs. So whatever we're trying to teach our people, make sure it's realistic and sets the right expectations.
Sure.
You know, there's plenty of training companies out there that have realistic mannequins that would love to be involved in these. You got acting agencies that love to be a part of this, because another frustrating part of this is we do these drills airports have to do them every 3 years. Some agencies do them every year or so often. And then we try to find explorers or anybody else that's willing to be a victim. And mostly we tend to fall back to CPR mannequins or anything else we can find that'll be a victim. Yeah. And we're going to read a card, go back to, I'd rather have 3 nasty, bloody, realistic mannequins laying on the ground that give me the thinking through, and then I got to treat that accordingly, pass it on, and let every crew rotate through in the skill of having to triage these victims along with others. And I'm throwing out there, get your retirees to be a part of it. Oh, wow. Those people didn't leave the firehouse and decide they're going to go fishing and everything else. Not all of them. Some of them would love the reason to come back, and they would love to do it probably for free. And they probably been on some calls, and they probably pass on
a little bit of knowledge, right? You're not wrong. Yeah.
Why don't we capitalize on them? Man. They're out there, So you could put the all call out to any retiree agency you got under your agency, or in your county or your fire district or your agency. We got a great group of fire retirees. Sadly, Chief Tootin passed away, but his wife Jeannie still continues it. His son's on the job with us, and every month they do a luncheon, and they do a really cool job with keeping in connection. And a lot of these guys have great stories, great things, and they've been involved in a lot of these scenarios in years past.
That would be awesome.
So, you got 15, 20 of them that would be happy to volunteer out. And it's an MCI.
Yes.
You can put them 6 to 10 feet away from each other. No problem.
That would be perfect victims, because they know exactly how to act, because they have the experience with it.
Now, the one thing you'd have to do is let them stay all mangled up, the eyeball hanging and the arms, and let them go to the luncheon after that. Right. Look what happened to me, So, but have fun with it, right?
Jasper Miller has said, is it possible that we aren't teaching firefighters to figure things out, teaching a mechanical aptitude? Rather, we get stuck on doing only the skills people have been taught.
Yes, that's a great question. Nearby agency, Lake County, I don't know if they still do it, but on their hiring test, they had a toolbox. And in the toolbox was a dozen tools, and they would say, all right, and they would have you get 6 things. So it wasn't like, a process of elimination. You found out the plus sign screwdriver.
The plus sign, Terry.
So you had to figure out, okay, and they gave you nuts and bolts, and they gave so a little bit of mechanical aptitude. And was it a fail? Not really, but it kind of gave a sense as to what does this person know.
Right.
And we can blame that on all kinds of things. Why don't kids play video games? My son's been playing video games now. When I get done with this, I'm going to play Fortnite with him for a little while. Why? Because that's what he likes to do. Sure. So if I force him to do the things I like to do and I don't reciprocate, I'm not doing him any service. So, but it's the only thing he likes to do? No. When COVID started in the first couple of months, you know what? We're going to learn all the tools in the garage, and we're going to rehash how to put a screw in a piece of wood, and nail, hammer, and hammer and nail, and go over some life skills and change a tire and do all these, and build up so that if my kid does go to a firehouse, because that's what he wants to do in his career, I'm not going to force him, but if he wants to go, awesome. But I want him to be ready so that he can be mechanically inclined to some degree. Right. And it's sometimes not their strength. I get it. That's not going to be his strength. But my daughter, she's got the mindset. She's 2 years younger, but she can figure stuff out. She's pretty smart. I'm scared, but God bless, she's just like my wife, and she's beautiful and intelligent. So mechanical aptitude and what firefighters are lacking and stuff. the trick is in the complacency time, the downtime, that's where we could. But as a firefighter, if you lack that, I was contacted recently by a prospective lieutenant on our list. It said, "Hey, Chief, I feel like our department has let us down, hasn't prepared us to be promoted." I said, "All right, I'll give you halvesies on that. Our agency doesn't put on a program to teach them what they got to do for the day-to-day and feel like they're in charge, but 50% is your fault."
Right on you, yeah.
When did you not go to a class, a seminar, ask somebody, realistically write down your shortfalls and address them by going to people that you trust, and not just one? Don't go to just one.
Right.
Go to several, because just one doesn't give you the right answers. When I went to college 100 years ago, the big push was for critical thinking,
right,
and it was at least 3 sources. Do exactly that. We should do more of that these days rather than
no doubt.
Facebook said, not so much. Go to those sources, learn as much as you can, and then ask the other question. What's something else I need to know?
Sure. That's a great question. And to address Jasper and what he's saying there, it's just it's real easy for guys to fade into the background and say, I don't want to be involved. The step.
Yeah, it looks like a junior high dance.
Right. Yeah, everybody's up against the wall as who's doing the skill. Okay, the youngest guy is forced to do it. All right, he got it done. Let's check that box. Let's move on. Next.
Right. So Corley, as a teacher, when you've got the crew, you've got a shift's worth of crew, who do you have demonstrate the skill that you probably think very few people know?
Very few people know?
Yeah. Who's the guy that you pick out of the crowd to have demonstrate the skill? Do you pick the senior guy or the most junior guy?
Man, this really comes down to, is the senior guy comfortable in failing? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, well put.
And so, but I will grab the senior guy if I know he's comfortable in failing. So,
but if you're not sure, if that guy, you feel like he's going to lose face or you're going to lose his respect, do you put him in that position? No. So I try not to do that as well. Sometimes I'll have those senior firefighters step like, "Hey, I'm not afraid. I'll do, but typically they're a little fuzzy on it, or they haven't been seen it, but they've got the, oh yeah, I got the. I'll always pick the most junior guy. I'm like, "Listen, man, I ain't calling you out because I want to make you look dumb, but I want you to be my guy to help show me." And then a couple of them surprised me because they in turn like, "Hey, did you even know about this? Look at that." Right. So the guy gave the whole crowd a show, and it worked out good. But I try not to disgrace or discredit those guys, and this way, because eventually that new guy becomes the next up.
Sure.
And there's another new guy, so he's out of the barrel,
Right. And the other thing you can do is step up and do it yourself, which sometimes might be the scariest option of all. So,
for sure.
And that's where you have to say, "Hey, I don't know it, but I'm going to do it right here, so we'll all learn together."
Well, the biggest fear in human nature is the fear of confrontation. Everybody say, "Oh, I'm afraid of public speaking." So, well, that's a derivative of the fear of confrontation, right? People don't want to fight. They don't want to get involved. They don't want to be a part of it. You can see a horrific accident and see the cause of it and talk to those people 6 months later and they're like, "Nah, I don't want to be involved." That's another case in point. But we need to get over that. And as firefighters, you have to, because you got to talk to people for all kinds of reasons. You shouldn't be afraid to be in front of your peers to demonstrate that, "Hey, man, I'll be willing to admit I don't know this. Show me what we got."
Yes. And it's culture. And straight up, we'll go back to Chief T, which that's Chief Thomas. That's me and Hannah Elliott call him Chief T whenever we discuss stuff. So Chief T, when he talks about culture, it's all about setting that culture where failure is okay for learning purposes. Failure is okay in training. In fact, it's the purpose.
Absolutely.
Robert Ramirez said, "Chief Walt is a leader and asset to the entire fire service. He makes everyone around him better. Absolute force multiplier. Great guest. Merry Christmas, brothers." So a little bit of hype there for us.
Thanks, Rob. Be safe down there, brother. He's one of those big guys with the Parkland shooting. His agency challenged that one, and they got a success on that one. So those guys really, really performed for the people that needed to down there.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, outstanding work by them.
Kyle Schwab. I'll go with Schwabel. If you only show someone how to do something and don't let them get their hands on it and walk them through it, you're setting them up for failure.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen, brother. How's South Carolina? So hopefully things good.
Garrett Rice said, "Chief Bruno, quote, 'What if we just teach them?'" Which is such a great quote, man. So
Amen.
there.
Yeah.
So, right on. I'm going to hit you with a couple things now. We wear a lot of hats, and we've already, again, all of my notes here and questions to ask, we've already touched on and shellacked. So some of these are redundant, but I do like to just throw them at you. All the hats we wear now, especially, in our careers, basically, I hired on in 97 and you've been going at it since the 90s. How do we focus back on what we do? Namely, we fight fire. No one else wears that hat. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Absolutely.
So,
but there's nobody else doing confined space rescue. There are companies out there that do hazmat. It's typically recovery companies, right?
Sure. Remediation, yeah.
Yeah.
Dive rescue. Water, right.
Right. So we do need to be in all hazards. So, I talk out of one side of my mouth saying, oh, fire. But that's our core mission. We can't negate our core mission to be good at these couple other specialties. So one thing, and it's not a popular opinion amongst the chief world, is if we truly want our people to be good, you got to stop training them on duty. You're going to have to go to an off-duty status, and you're going to have to pay them for it. Fair Labor Standards Act says that's going to happen. So, but if you expect people to perform at their highest level and the full capabilities of what you expect, it's going to cost. Now, we've always gotten away with it because there's downtime, and we can have guys train, and we can do 2 hours of confined space this week, and we can do a month, we can do dive rescue next month. You're taking yourself to great risk by eliminating other times and other competencies to try and fit it all in when it doesn't. So you got to pick what's really going to be there. You got to prioritize what you got. The firefighting has to be there because we have to be good at that. And to expect to only be good and train when we go to the fires, you're going to fail.
Right.
If you expect the training division to teach you what you need to know for your job, you're going to fail. If you don't,
I'm listening. Sorry, Cobbs. I'm walking all over you. You're preaching so good right now. I love it. Go.
So, and I said it before, one of my favorite phrases is if we don't now acquired structure training. I had a tragedy way back early in my career, almost 20 years now. But I'm thankful our department stuck with live fire training regardless. And the state of Florida didn't shut it down. They built a program to teach people how to do it safely and to ensure that it's followed properly. But if we don't do acquired structure fire, you're failing in the sense that you're not practicing. Nothing beats a house fire like a house fire.
Right.
If our burn building catches fire at any point in the rest of my career, we will have that mastered. I'll know exactly where that water needs to go to put that building out that's made out of concrete.
Right.
But it's the house fires we need to go to. We need to look at the exhaust tubes, the vent tubes, the ship pipes, as Mike Haney put them.
There you
go. We need to know that burn building doesn't have that.
Right.
It doesn't have realistic windows. It doesn't have the same count of windows on one side as it, has the same count of windows on one side as it does as the other. It doesn't give me the size of scenario. It doesn't give me the read for where I got to throw my ladders and what size of ladders, being able to, all the things that realistic training brings us to. So if we fail from our core mission, we're taking great risk, and the people at risk are two. It's not only the citizens, but it's us and our sanctity.
Yes. I love that about your message, man. I love that.
It's our sanctity because we're going to go to jobs that are going to fail. Regardless of how good we do, they're going to go bad. And people will die. But you can walk away with them and you can live through them and you could survive through the agency if you know that you did the best you could with the equipment you have and we were ready. And ready in the best aspect of being just mentally and physically prepared. If you fail, you will carry that burden for the rest of your life. And God bless, some people haven't been able to carry it as long as they made that life a little shorter than it needed to be.
Sure. The nightmares. Plain and simple.
Yeah, and it's sad. So as an agency, you need to look, and as a chief, and I love that Scott Thompson does for the colony what other fire chiefs should. There's very few fire chiefs that really, really, John Boyd said, you can either be somebody or do something.
Love it.
And how many of the mass instructors that are out there that are really carrying a solid message are fire chiefs? Now, in the fire chief world, there are fire chiefs teaching other fire chiefs, and there are really good ones out there. But there's 35,000 fire agencies in the world, in the United States, right? About that much. How many of those? Maybe about 35 fire chiefs are really carrying a good message.
Yeah,
Mark Bayshore teaches great messages. He's a Highland County fire chief, but he's from the PG County area. He puts on some great stuff. My fire chief does a really good job in sharing messages. He's just really overwhelmed, but he's involved in a lot of stuff. Was in the past. Scott Thompson, Chief Bruno, what an example. He set the tone, set a culture in his agency to advocate for what he did. But ultimately, our core is to serve the community. And by doing that, we need to be prepared. And being prepared helps us be good at the job. So when we walk away with a loss that the families tragically died, It wasn't because we couldn't catch up to the hydrant, that we didn't have water in the truck, that we couldn't get our pack on in a timely fashion.
Yeah,
we couldn't force the door. We failed at core functions. If that's your agency, I challenge you to fix it.
Dude, yeah, there you go. There you go. There's the finger and there's the challenge. And that brings me, there was a corporate at Station 1 yesterday. We were sitting and talking about, again, we'll talk about Chief Thompson again. He comes up over and over on the scrap, but that's fine. He was posting in one of the engine company resurrection things about standards, and there was these sheets he was posting.
Yeah, Ramagus stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But on one side it had like, it was just a company standards evolution of like deploying a hose line to a front door. And it was awesome. On one side, it had like, here are the standards that we meet. These aren't even up for debate. So whenever you as a company officer, you pull out this sheet, you can say, here's what we're going to do, crew. And they're like, do we need to have our packs on for this? Do we need to be fully bunked? That kind of thing. It's like, no, here's the standard. It's right here. We're on air, packed up, ready to go. And here's the time frame. And I love it. I'm going to steal it. I'm going to try and make my own. And so go from there. So sorry.
Yeah. No, not at all.
The training officer is coming at you. He said, Chief Walt, as far as the stigma of training officers only teach because they can't do, how do we as training officers change that mindset?
Do.
One word answer.
It's easy. Do. Don't. If you're a lazy slug and you're hiding in the office, then you're earning that name. Show up. Go to calls. Show up to the stations. And if you're not sure about something, have the humility to learn. But bring the techniques in, teach the people, get the forcible entry doors, get the buildings that are going for demo. Even if you can't set them on fire, get the acquired structure so that the crews can do non-destructive then destructive training on the buildings. Maximize the opportunities. Get the vendors to come out and show what the new products are and say, hey, how do we get this on our inventory? Take the initiative to figure out where your problems are and come up with solutions. And spitball the ideas with other people that you trust. Get a think tank together. Don't call it a committee. You'll never get anything done.
Right.
You can call it a work group when it comes time to do work, but get a think tank together to come up with ideas. And think of the big. I love the moniker, small minds talk about people, great minds talk about concepts. Be a great mind. Talk about concepts. How can we make this better? What can we do? Who can we peg? And put the all call out there, because you'll be surprised at who some of your resources are and who will step forward when the opportunity presents. But don't let them down. If you let them down, they will stop showing up. So it's going to be up to you to also put in some time. And a training officer is not just Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, if they're a good one. They're 24/7. And that's the drain, is that they're coming out on Saturdays and Sundays and doing training. But if you have the opportunity to flex your time, but you're going to have to be realistic with your family too.
Sure.
So if you're a single guy, awesome. It means one day fishing that you're not going. That stinks. Fishing's a good time, but you're not going to give up your kid's birthday or your anniversary. You better not.
Sure.
Because family's going to have to be there after your career. But you want to be a good training officer, do.
One word answer. I may steal that for a meme and say, if you want to be a good training officer, do. Chief Walt Lewis.
Have at it.
All right.
I wish I was smart enough to come up with all this stuff.
Yeah, Scott Thompson said, thank you, Walt. Garrett Rice said competency. I'm pretty sure he's talking about exactly what we're saying, do. Lena Baxter said, as a training officer, you must show them that you aren't afraid to do what you are teaching. And with all the stuff you are required to teach, that is a tall order. So I'm not saying it like it's easy. Chris Coleman, the on-duty training in smaller, busy departments is such a challenge. This was a topic I am working on now. Great stuff, Chief. Great seeing you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. I'm taking notes because some of these great comments are coming through, so it jogs a little idea about something. So
I love the viewers and the stuff they bring almost as much as I love the guests. So I really do appreciate it.
We got some quality people on there.
There's no doubt.
For joining us tonight.
Toughest lessons you have learned. And I love this question because I like to put it in this way, is like, if you could go back in time and tell a young Walt Lewis a truth that you now understand and he would laugh at you, like, what would that be?
Well, I can go in so many different directions. There's the old joke, oh, I wouldn't marry my first wife. Well, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have my first son. So,
Sure.
I wouldn't trade that out for anything. Man, oh man. if there's a couple things there are a couple regrets in life that I would rather have had done, and by not doing those things, it's put me in the path to where I'm at today.
Sure.
But if I could still end up here and having done those things, I would have joined the military, probably the Marine Corps. My dad used to advocate join the Navy or the Air Force because you always had a bed to sleep in and food to eat. But he served in the Army. He was in the 100th Infantry, served in World War II. Pretty cool stuff. And I feel like I should have. My sister served. God bless my sister Michelle. She's served in the Army, but I did not. And there's a special sense amongst the military members that are now fire service members, and it's a certain honor, and they deserve it for sure. And I kind of wish I was a little part of that.
Sure.
And I realize that I don't earn that honor, and I respect them for having done what they did. So there's one, and there's one moment in life where I should have stepped up and been the bigger or the better little brother. My brother was a lieutenant for Passaic Fire Department many years ago. He called. It's like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. The phone rings, and I get up and I said the stupidest thing. I go, somebody either better be dead or seriously injured for me to be getting this phone call at 1 in the morning. I pick up the phone, and it's my brother John. And he's going, "Hey, Squirt, we had a bad night in Passaic. We had a fireman, Al Torado, get killed. Just want you to know that I'm okay. I ain't got time to go through it. I'll talk to you later on. I love you."
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
I felt like a jackass for saying that to start with, but I felt even worse when later on, a couple days later, I realized I should have been in a car or on a plane to be there to do what he did for me some years later. And I wouldn't have asked for him to do what he did later, but he did it because he's just that kind of guy.
Right.
But, and that's having loving people in your life. And I got a bunch of them, my family and my siblings and so forth. But I should have been there for him, but he forgives me, and he still buys me a Christmas present. So I guess we're even by this point. But a regret in life I'll always wish is I can't fix that time. I can't redo it, is to be there. So out of those two things, if you're thinking of military service and it really fits, it molds you in a direction that I've seen some really good people come out of when they weren't so good going in. So It might be a good opportunity. And then be there. Be there when it matters.
No, I like that. You got me going down my own memory lane. So,
yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. So I'll break off that and go to. Is there a book or books that you think that firefighters should read?
You want the list or the top 10? So. I
got my pen ready. I got my Post-it notes ready.
Right.
So here we go.
All right. I'm sure we talked in the earlier part is that you're behind on a couple books, and some of them are ones you mentioned before, and they're great books. Just the core simples. John Norman. Sorry, they're all right behind me. I should just turn around. John Norman's Company Officer's Leadership or Company Officer's Handbook of Tactics. Is just a really good soup to nuts, A to Z book on firefighting.
Yes.
Cuts a lot in there. Hits on the different tactics, a lot of good stuff. Of course, it's got a bit of a Northeast flavor, but he does a good job of trying to stay neutral and put in a lot of why and how things work, not so much you should do, but understand these are the things to do, right? So good stuff. A good core firefighting book. Verbal Judo is a good book. It's really helpful in being able to diffuse situations. If you're going to be an officer, if you're going to be a company officer or a chief officer, I think it should be required reading.
Solid, okay.
And I've done audiobooks for the last couple of years only because when I sit down, there's a button on my butt. And only because I'm talking is that I wouldn't be asleep right now. So I even eat dinner standing up half the time. My wife laughs at me. But and sitting down to read a book, I have to do the audiobook thing. But listen to Verbal Judo. And then the other one, On Combat, by Colonel Grossman. I love that book. I've referenced it, listened to it several times, or farmed those out to other personnel that are advancing their careers. It really helps with understanding. I wish he spent a little more time towards the back end when he talks about conditions: white, red, yellow, gray, and black. About the thought processes. But to follow up with that one, firefighter resiliency.
Right.
But, Yep, by Rick George. You had him on here as a guest too, right?
Yes,
Early on.
Very early on.
I love Surf Dog. He's an awesome dude. He's helping me out with the Orlando Fire Conference coming up in February. Him, Bob Carpenter, and I always forget the third guy that helped him put it together. I apologize. Give me a second.
Yeah. I don't know if you hear me, but I always remember Rick George because he was on the scrap, and I forget the other two authors. So
I got to give him the honor, but without wasting time on your podcast, without having to dig it out, I should have done that before the show started. I apologize, guys, but great book. Check it out. It's very, very simple. It's skinny, and like Surf Dog says, he's a firefighter, so it's got big words and lots of pictures.
Right.
But those, and then a simple one. It's Your Ship.
It's Your Ship. I love it.
It's Your Ship. It's a little over 200 pages. It's an easy read, and the core principle is, okay, how do I help support you? Because you found the problem. You're the one that's got to live through it.
Right.
So, I love Abershoff's position on that and what he did for the Benfold. Jocko's stuff, his podcast, Extreme Ownership. I like the I should have wrote it down because I figured, I'll remember it. But his the leadership book that they did, that he and Leif Babin did.
Extreme or Dichotomy or?
Dichotomy
okay.
Of leadership.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So that's another good one. So, I could look back through my reading list and just start spitting them out. But
no, absolutely.
I don't want to bore the readers too much, but there's a lot of good ones out there. There's a period a couple of years ago that I was listening to a lot of leadership podcasts and reads and everything else, and I had to quit. I just had to stop because I knew I could only influence my sphere.
Right.
But so many of these lessons to be learned were falling on deaf ears higher up, and I knew these people needed to hear it, and it just frustrated me. So that frustration saturation level really peaked. So the tenacity had to engage. I had to look back at my own notes and remind myself how to get through the bad leadership times, and that helped out. But re-engaging in those leadership books helped out. So I couldn't say that I am a good leader, but you'd have to ask the people that I get to work with. But I try. So that's my goal, is always to be good.
I can only judge off the amount of comments on here that have sent kudos to say that I will say I feel confident in saying that you are. So, and if I can look at the list of books that you suggested people should read, then I know that your influences are strong. So
I'm blessed to be around a lot of great people.
Absolutely. And the fact that you say that right there. So, all that being said, we have on the weekly scrap the 5 questions for firefighters.
Yes.
These are 5 questions I throw at guys who are passionate about the fire service, and I get their opinions, and the answers are strictly your opinions. There are no right or wrongs, and the points are completely arbitrary, assigned by me. So, I already teased out earlier one of the answers, I think, but I didn't give it away, so we'll see. But all that being said, Walt Lewis, are you ready for the 5 questions for firefighters?
Bring it on.
All right, here we go. Send it. That's the best answer ever. Number 1, what is the number 1 issue facing the modern fire service?
From listening to your other podcasts, I really dwelled on this one for a while, but to me, it's arrogance and ignorance. I got to pair the two together. And on the sense that arrogance is having that position that I am always right and I don't need to hear your side. And ignorance is I'm too dumb to know that I don't know all the answers. And I could go way in depth in both of those, but arrogance exists at a lot of levels. It's in the early firefighter. It used to be, Tom Brennan used to write about the 2D 5-year veteran who, he'd seen enough and didn't need to be taught anymore until he got humbled. And it was somewhere around the 2 to 5 year mark after that onset of bad behavior that they got humbled and truly started to realize there's more to learn. But that arrogance also exists in the company officer, that now I'm a company officer. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do reports. I don't have to do dishes. I don't have to do anything. I can sit in my lounger in the office and I can do whatever I want to do and not train my people. And hopefully they don't have a bad day to reinforce why they should be doing what they need to. And hopefully their people escape and make it a better day somewhere else.
I love that.
But it exists a lot in chief officers in the sense that, and something we're trying to change, but in the sense that I don't need to train anymore. I passed the chief's test. I'm good to go.
Now,
not the case.
I'm trying to think of the quote, which is about ignorance and arrogance. And the only thing more dangerous than ignorance is arrogance. I think it was Mark Twain. I was trying to find it here.
Yeah.
No, Albert Einstein said it. The only thing more dangerous than ignorance is arrogance. So that's what I wanted to throw at you is, which one do you think is more?
Arrogance. Arrogance puts you in the position where you can try and justify to yourself you can be ignorant. Ignorant is usually just you don't know better.
Right.
And sometimes it takes the humility or the hard lesson learned to get past it and realize your position. But the arrogance, you're in a position where you feel like you're impervious. And that's dangerous.
I like it. I do like that. No one has ever brought up ignorance and arrogance on question 1. And so that is max points for question number 1. Number 2, what is the thing you are most excited about for the future of firefighting?
The future firefighters, the guys we got coming into the business now, the guys and gals, there are so many outlets to achieve knowledge. And it's been said before, we're we're swimming in knowledge and starving for wisdom.
Yes.
It can be gained. It just sometimes has to be tempered. So it's asking the questions, having the humility you need to learn, or bringing up the hard questions. But what I see out of a lot of the youth in the fire service coming in now, and when they're properly motivated and supported, is what I want to finish that up with is a lot of the new firefighters we got coming into the Orlando Fire Department have Instagram and Facebook and online surveys, but there's all these fire conferences.
Yes.
Years ago, it used to be FDIC and Firehouse Expo.
Yep.
That's it. And then Firehouse Expo branched out and they started having a couple more, and FDIC did a couple more and stuff. But now you can look on a calendar and every week there's a different conference somewhere.
You can throw a rock and hit a quality conference. I mean, literally.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you could take an arrogant position of like, well, who are these guys to pass on something? You know what? Every big dog started as a puppy.
Yes, sir.
I was a puppy at one point, and I ain't a big dog, but I'm willing to learn. And this guy's got something to pass on. I want to hear it, and maybe it fits, maybe it don't. Maybe I can use it as a plan B. But a lot of the youth in the fire service, they're getting so exposed to so much good stuff and so many outlets and so many ways to connect that they can absorb this information faster. They don't have to be at 10 years to be a good firefighter. They can genuinely soak this stuff up, train, practice, talk to these guys, take avenues of training and stuff, and really develop and cultivate. And these are the guys that are going to be taking care of me when I'm at home, not working in the firehouse anymore. And I'm excited that they'll be better prepared than I was at their point in their career. Oh,
amazing. Yeah, so summing it up, the youth coming in and the exposure that they have available to channel that passion. And Lynn Baxa chimed in and said, I know a few great young firefighters that got very discouraged by arrogant line officers. And so both of those answers kind of tie right together, that arrogance crushing those young guys, and then the future being those young firefighters being able to channel that through what's available. So, man, good. Yeah, excellent.
And just hitting on that for just a second, sorry to throw you off and drag us out, but when I was a roving officer, I'd get phone calls every once in a while like, hey, man, I don't appreciate you training my guys and teaching them other stuff. Hey, man, I don't appreciate you having me work with idiots that don't know their job at a basic level.
Right.
So if you're too arrogant to do some training, or if you're a fellow company officer and you see those guys squandering and not getting the information, maybe shoot them a little something, do it respectfully. Maybe go to that other officer. Hey, man, these guys seem like they really jam up, and they would do, maybe serve by getting a little extra training. And if that person just doesn't want to engage, don't let those people flounder. Do a little something, see what you can do, some sort of network or mechanism that you can try and help them out. And then maybe you can help them get a workaround.
Love it. Dave Pruitt said, agreed. I am so encouraged by the number of young guys that are seeking out the knowledge, many of them on their own dime. It is a joy to be around their excitement. And that's the truth, man. It's like, yeah, it's hard to knock that. So I'm moving on to number 3. Sure. This is the one I think you gave away earlier, so I'll see if I'm right. Best rank or position to be in the fire service?
Now, this is through my experience was company officer. For 10 years, I got to work on some of the busiest engine companies and the slowest engine company. But all of them we trained, and all of them had good people. They weren't all the same people. They weren't all fired up. They weren't all fired to go out training, but they still did it. They were all proficient. But company officers where you see, it's like being a paramedic and giving a diabetic insulin or D50, you see an immediate result.
Right.
That's the company officer. The chief officer is like you giving them a medicine. It's like an antibiotic. It's going to take a while.
I love that analogy, man. I love that.
All right. So for the EMS nerds, I'm a paramedic. And I'm okay. I'm a paramedic. So it'd be like a support group, but in those analogies, it's you see over time the development, and truly the people I get to work with. I have 6 guys I get to work with, 6 great company officers, and there's some little personnel changing happening right now, but they're all different, but they're all mission driven. And I love that because I want to be mission driven. I don't have to waste my day chasing people down and where's this guy and doing this and how come you guys are late and what did you do? I don't have to waste my time with that. They're mission driven. So I'm enjoying more the chief officer, but it's taken 6 years
to feel the results,
to really feel it, to be happier.
Right.
But whatever rank you're in, it's the best one while you're there. Make it that way.
Make it that way. I like it. The correct answer, the only correct answer is company officer. I'm a battalion chief. You're a district chief. Same rank, different name, but yeah, the best answer is company officer. So max points.
We'll start a peer support group.
That's it. No, it's a different dynamic, and I think Eric Saylors, he was on back in the 20s, I want to say, maybe the 30s of the scrap, and he said, when you're a firefighter, you take care of the problem, and then when you're a company officer, you take care of the guys that take care of the problem, and when you're a battalion chief, you take care of the guys who take care of the guys who take care of the problem, and it was such a beautiful analogy for the moving up the ranks.
That's really cool. Yeah, I like that.
But the correct answer, max points, company officer. Go ahead, sorry.
The only other thing is, as a battalion chief, definitely the tractor there is I don't have an aide. Some agencies, you get somebody else to drive along with you.
Sure.
Dude, I make some funny jokes in the cab of that truck, and there is nobody there to listen.
Yes.
Nobody. So I missed out on that.
Here's what I don't understand, which I have the iPad, the MDT, whatever you want to call it, sitting right there beside me. I'm driving the rig. We got a multiple alarm or whatever dropping, and I'm on the radio. We got to get some aids.
Amen.
100%. Before I wrap that Chiefs buggy around a telephone pole.
We have a floating district chief because we have Kelly days, so the staffing the way it is.
Okay.
Sun, moon, and stars align. We'll have that extra chief, and then we'll work together. And some of my best friends are in the same rank, so we had that as opportunities. It's pretty cool. So we were driving around, 2 chiefs in 1 buggy, and when we're going to a fire, we ended up doing paper, rock, scissors. And it wasn't so we could run command. The loser had to run command. The winner got to get in gear and go forward.
I got you. Yes, and that was the winner. Number 4 of the 5 questions for firefighters. The best advice you, Walt Lewis, have ever received.
There's a ton. So when I was getting promoted to district chief, it was I got told in March it was going to happen in April, so it led into FDIC before it happened. So as I'm going up there, I figured I'm in a giant pond. I'm going to ask as many chiefs as I can find and get a nugget. So I took the opportunity and having the blessing of being a part of the teaching group that they're the list of instructors that are there. It gives you a access to a lot of people. So I took advantage of it. Talked to Chief Salka, first in, last out, good leadership, demonstrate by example, know your job.
Sure.
Chief Norman, value the guys, lead them, be the boss you want to work for. Kai Rieger, just do your best, always try to do better than the last day. Just a lot of good sage bits of wisdom. But probably the best piece of wisdom I got was from Rick Lasky.
Okay.
Who doles out lots of good wisdom. And one of his pieces was a good chief knows when to leave the room. So every now and then you finish up with dinner, the time happens, and the troops want to be able to just talk. Now, it shouldn't be the wrong kind of talk. So let me be clear on that.
Sure.
And if it looks like it might go that way, then you need to stay in the room.
You need to be in the room, right. But
prevent that from happening. But
he was very clear. A good chief knows.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry, I don't mean to walk on you.
No, you're exactly right. You're proving my point. So you just kind of read the tempo, and if you have to stop the conversation, stop the conversation, because you don't want to go in sideways. You don't want it to be a problem. But a good chief knows when to give the guys their space. And that's more or less what he's saying. Like that chief that came to the firehouse, that one of those first months I was a lieutenant, and put his arm around me and made me sit down and watch TV to give the guys a little breather. Give him that grace. You need to see when when the horses are running hard, they can only do it for so long. So
I love
thought
it.
that was pretty wise.
No, Lasky's given a lot, like you said. So great, man. Dude, okay. I think that's 4 max points in a row. I'm not sure if that's ever happened before. Final question, which is heavy fire and searchable space. Would you rather be assigned to the nozzle or first in on VES?
The nozzle. And it's not for that, and it's certainly the knob is the job, right? The search saves the one, the nozzle saves the all. So in putting the fire out, stops the problems and protects everybody else.
Sorry, I'm writing that down. Search saves the one.
Search saves the one, the nozzle, the water on the fire saves them all.
Saves the all. I like that. Obviously, saves the all.
Man, I'm coming up with all kinds of bumper stickers.
I'm going to have to make a bunch of memes to put on the Instagram page now at this point. So, there it is. The 5 questions for fire. That might be, I don't know. I may have to go back and watch 65 episodes to see if anybody's ever gotten max points for all 5 because they're completely arbitrary.
I've listened to a bunch, and you've got some high-quality people on there.
No doubt.
I've heard you dole out max points for a lot of good, and certainly earned. So, does max points get me like D-Bucks on Fortnite? What happens there?
It might get you like a hat or something, like a snapback of some sort.
Tell you what, send me one. I'll trade you one back.
Okay, there you go. Easy win.
Yeah.
Doug Machowski said, great quote. Marco Isom said, wishing everyone a Merry Christmas and hopefully a much better year in 2021. Brother, I think we're all on page with that one. And Carl Kofler said, wow, very profound. I do love it, man. The nozzle saves the all. There you go. Back to you, Walt. Best place to contact you, reach out to you, get in touch with you if they want anything from you.
My humble abode. My home number is 321-228-3087 if you want to call. I prefer like regular hours, like up until 11 o'clock Eastern.
Right.
Text is best because you know how life is. And then the 6 initials for Orlando Fire Department, Walter John Lewis at AOL.com. OFDWJL at AOL.com. So it's good stuff. I've been throwing some pictures on Instagram, just got some thinker things. And it's the same thing, OFDWJL, Instagram. But I'm no Instagram wizard. Every day I'm learning something. My wife laughs at me because she's teaching me stuff. She's got a fantastic wedding floral business, and she's lived and learned and helps me out. But the easiest way to contact me is those messages, those ways. So.
All right, I'm doing something completely selfish for me. Right, first I'm going to say coming up to finish out the year, in a few days we're doing Jim Moss. We're talking about firefighter success and his new book that's coming out, and we're going to deep dive into it. That's on the 28th. December 30th, to bring in the new year, David Hinojosa is coming on to talk about training and his mindset. And then January is grand packed. We've got Daryl Liggins, Dave Mellon, Garrett Rice, Kurt Isaacson, James Gearing. January's packed. It's going to be great. Things I want to say. The scrap is looking like really pumped. I do not do ads or sponsorships or talk about stuff on the scrap. But what I do want to throw out there to anybody watching is I wear blank t-shirts. And so if anybody wants to send me a t-shirt to wear on the scrap, I'm not saying I will wear it, but I'm saying if you send it and I think it's cool, I will wear it. So
what size?
I am an XL, but
yeah.
All right. So there you go. There's my first one. I'm just throwing it out there. Like I said, I'm not saying I will wear it. I'm just saying if it's cool and I like the thing, I will wear it on the scrap for what it's worth. That's me just getting some free swag.
I think you might be getting some full shirts here soon.
That would be awesome, especially considering the person I'm talking to when it comes to the scrap, the fools. There you go. Weekly scrap, number 65. Scott Thompson said, Walt, I sat through your mentoring class at FDIC in like 2002. Merry Christmas, brothers.
Yeah, thank you, Scott.
I don't think there's better praise than that. And Paul T. Dansbach said, outstanding, Walt.
Hey, thanks, Paul. Thank you. So, yeah.
There's a bunch coming at
you.
Sorry. Lots of
no,
stuff.
not at all.
No, great stuff as usual. Merry Christmas. Be safe. That's from Doug Michalski. So sorry, I don't mean to go.
No, not at all. I wish I could see the thread but I'm glad I don't because I'd be like squirrel. No, I'm very humbled that for one being considered to be part of the show, especially with some of the great people, and you got some more great people coming on here soon. You know, Daryl Liggins from Oakland and James Gearing, great friend of mine, and Kurt Isaacson. I mean, some really high level players, and you got Hinojosa's name right too. So that's impressive.
I've been working on it because I hear he'll knife.
Good.
Yeah, the knife punch.
So I'm excited. I love listening to it, and I try to advocate to the guys. It's it's very philosophical. I love Mike Walker's show that he did a while back. So thanks for doing this. There's like the reason for the new firefighters getting to be better is because of stuff like this, and I appreciate you making it what it is to help them be better.
Well, thank you for taking the time and spending your evening with me, going down rabbit holes and chasing squirrels, which is what we do here on the Scrap. Everybody that watched live, thank you so much. I hope the tone stays silent unless it's burning. Stay safe out there, and thank you, Chief.
You got it. Mele Kalikimaka, and Merry Christmas.